Alright everybody, we finished the first half of the clauses, so now what we are going to do is look at the second half, which we call classification of sentences, the 4 sentence types. When we get to the quiz, here's what I'm going to have you do. I'm going to have you break the sentences down into independent and subordinate clauses, and you're going to count each type of those clauses, and then based on that math, you're going to find out the type of sentence that you have. Okay? So this lecture will be just on those 4 sentence types, one of which we've already discussed, and that is the simple sentence. Okay, write this down, take these notes. The simple sentence has 1 independent clause only and 0 subordinate clauses. And as you can see why they're called simple, they tend not to be very dynamic sentences, though you can have very long simple sentences with the proper use of prep phrases and other kinds of phrases. So some examples of independent clause. Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. Peter Piper picked is your subject verb. Peter Piper has bizarre hobbies. Peter Piper has subject verb, only 1 clause. I call my dog Peter Piper. I call subject verb. And Spider-Man is named Peter Parker. Spider-Man is named subject verb. Okay? For style, because really that's the ultimate application of grammar, is your usage is in your style, and you want to make sure that you don't have a lot of simple sentences because they really weaken your writing. Sometimes it can be used nicely as a rhetorical device or as a stylistic device, but I think all of you are mature enough writers now and have a degree of style that you don't rely on these too much. But go back to when you were writing in like 5th or 6th grade, and you probably see a lot of these sentences. Next, the complex sentence. Now the complex sentence is 1 independent clause only and 1 or more subordinate clauses. Mr. Carolan, who has a booming voice, is a happy fellow. On the other hand, when I see Mr. Miller, he can occasionally give me the creeps. Oh boy, and you can see why. That is a creepy stare. Bye-bye, Mr. Miller. So let's look at these 2 old boys. Who has a booming voice, that's an adjective clause, that's your subordinate. Mr. Carolan is a happy fellow, that's your independent. Thus, this is a complex sentence. Then, on the other hand, prepositional phrase, let's just ignore that. When I see Mr. Miller, okay, he can occasionally give me the creeps. So when I see Mr. Miller, subordinate clause, and he can occasionally give me the creeps, independent clause. Now remember, it's a 1 plus subordinate clauses. So some of those sentences we were doing like when we were doing, pardon me, now I'm getting sick, noun clauses and the adjective adverb clauses, where you saw a couple different subordinate types and then independent, those would be complex as well. You could have as many subordinate clauses as possible, but you must only have 1 independent. The third of our 4 types of sentence is the compound sentence. A compound sentence has to have 2 or more independent clauses, and it has 0 subordinate clauses. Okay, so it could have more than 2. It must have at least 2, and it'll never have a subordinate clause. I'm not trying to be mean by speaking of Miller's creepiness, but he is an odd bird at times. And why did I take this pic of myself, and how did I let Harris get a hold of it? So even his thought balloon is going to be used here. So I'm not trying to be mean by speaking of Miller's creepiness. I am trying. He is an odd bird at times. 2 independent clauses making this compound. Notice this section right here. If you only have 2 clauses in a sentence, and you see this comma before this conjunction, you always have a compound sentence. That's another one of those comma rules. Like the introductory adverb clause is a comma rule, this is also a comma rule. And here's my grammar tip number 2. Oh, there's an old grammar book. And that's just what I said. There was Miller's thought balloon. Why did I take this picture? And how did I let Harris get a hold of it? Now, you might think those are what do we call them? Noun clauses, but they are not. Again, those whys and hows and sometimes whos, they can be a little tricky, and sometimes it's a little trouble differentiating a noun clause between an independent clause. But remember, a noun clause is going to have a function. That's how you differentiate between whether you've got an independent clause using an interrogative pronoun like why or some of the others. Sorry, like I said, I'm getting a little ill and I'm not thinking right. Versus a noun clause, because that noun clause has to be a subject of something or a direct object of something or a predicate nominative of something. As you see here, these aren't doing anything but being their own clauses. Finally, our last of the four classification types, the compound complex sentence. Now, the compound complex has two or more independent and at least one subordinate. So it can have more than one, but it has to have one, and it always has to have two independent clauses. So for example, the room that Carrie painted had been white, but she changed the color. That Carrie painted, subordinate clause. The room had been white, independent clause, and she changed the color, independent clause. Two independents, one subordinate, compound complex. We know that the art department has worked very hard, and we appreciate the efforts. We know, independent clause, that the art department has worked very hard. Marking word of that, so this is a noun clause. It's what we know, so it's a direct object. That's subordinate, and then, hello cursor, we appreciate the efforts. So again, two independent, one subordinate. Okay, and we'll hold off on the errors list because we still have to do some more things. So there you go, the classification of sentences lecture. Ooh, look at me, I'm looking kind of hot there. The classification of sentences lecture is done. And what we're going to do now is we're going to go do a handful of exercises where you break the sentences down, classify them, and when we're all good and comfy with that, here comes the clauses quiz. I'll see you all at the next stop, which will be our first exercise in classification. Have a good evening. Although if you listen to this on a weekend day, that really doesn't make a lot of sense, but you get the idea.